Alright, what's up with y'all? So y'all know this is usually not what I do. I'm usually the guy that's taking all the news in coming from the games that I play. I'm not the guy that makes the videos on the news that's going on or the post that's been made or things coming to the game. I usually talk about the shit when they get here. But I feel like this specific thing right here that we're going to talk about today, which is going to be the stats from Undisputed and what they do. This is a blog post from Undisputed that they put on their X a couple weeks ago. I think it was on the 11th of this month. And I just kind of skimmed over it at that time, and I was like, shit, I'm going to check it out later. And I just figured today, man, I'm going to check it out and read through it, but why not do it with y'all so y'all can also get an understanding. I just think it's really important. It's also going to be pretty cool to see what everything does, because I don't know, and there's a few things like I've mentioned in my videos, like conditioning and endurance, that I've never known exactly what it means. And this is gonna, like I said, this is gonna be important for everybody, whether you play this casually or you very serious, you trying to rank up and all that. You're gonna want to know what these stats mean and how they work with the player that you choose, and it can also help you with choosing the right boxer to use when you're going against these guys that are going to be challenging for you. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna know some of this information. So this type of shit right here is the things that people like me would read and would know versus somebody who doesn't really care about the game and wouldn't know, but really wants to win at the game. You know what I'm saying? So if you know type of thing, but I don't want it to be that. I want everybody to know about this shit so we can all, you know what I'm saying, prosper from knowing this information. So let's go ahead and get into it. I don't want to be too long-winded in my intro. Let's start with the defense. That's the first thing on here. First of all, this shit is spelled wrong. That shit is crazy that they ain't fixed that shit. Chin resistance, used to determine the damage taken from power shots to the fighter's head. That's kind of easy to know, you know what I'm saying? Self-explanatory. Used to determine the threshold at which a fighter will enter dazed from a headshot. Again, self-explanatory. But we have a third one down here that says used to determine the chance a fighter will continue to be dazed after getting up from a knockdown caused by a headshot. Now that to me is very interesting. I didn't know that about chin resistance. Recently, after this last update, I have had more times where after getting knocked down that I get up and I'm still dazed. So it's nice to know why I'm still dazed. I might want to start looking at fighters who have a higher chin resistance along with like head health. You know what I'm saying? Body resistance seems to be the same thing. Again, the third one, determine the chance a fighter will continue to be dazed after getting up from a knockdown caused by a body shot. Didn't know that shit, bro. That's very important to know. So if you got a guy with low body resistance, high chin resistance, you wonder why you still getting up after a body shot, flash knockdown, and you still dazed, this is why. Because your body resistance is low. Because your chin resistance is low. You know what I'm saying? Looking at cut resistance, bruise resistance, and guarding. Cut resistance impacts the chance that the fighter will get cut from a punch, and impacts how quickly a cut will worsen. Okay? The end of that is pretty cool too. Impacts how quickly a cut will worsen. I didn't know that. Everything else is self-explanatory. Bruise resistance impacts the chance that a fighter will get a bruise, and impacts how quickly the bruise will worsen. So if you have a low bruise resistance, you'll not only get bruised easily, but it'll also worsen easily. That's what's up. Same thing with the cuts. Guarding impacts the amount of damage a punch does to the fighter's block health. Self-explanatory. Again, if you got low guarding, I'm gonna tell you right now, especially with how the game is, if you got low guarding, bro, that's just not smart at all for you to have a low guarding stat, or using boxers that have low guarding stats. Not right now. You should be looking for guys that have 80, like an 88 plus. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. Maybe 87, 86 you can get away with, but nah, you don't want to go too low with that. You don't want to go low with none of this up here, honestly. But knowing what those stats do, yeah, that's important. Let's move on to the heart. Courage impacts the get up mini game difficulty for the fighter if they're knocked down. This is the reason why you have guys like Terrence Crawford, Canelo, Carl Froch, who else? Roy Jones, Muhammad Ali. These guys that have a 90 courage, a 92, 93 courage, they can get up 10 times in a fight, no matter how many times you knock them down. And it's also used to determine the chance an AI fighter gets up after a knockdown. That's for all you offline guys. Looking at block health, determines the amount of health. Let me rewind real quick. Courage. Undisputed got to work on that. Courage, balancing that, and how many times you can get up. We got a side note real quick, because that shit is ridiculous. There's a lot of times where you'll put a guy down, 7, 8 times, bro, and he's just getting back up. We can't have that in the long run. Block health though determines the amount of health a fighter's block has. Once a fighter's block is out of health, it becomes easier to punch through their block. Wrong. It becomes the easiest shit to do when they have no block health. You can't even move when you ain't got no block health damn near. So that's good to know though. That's pretty self-explanatory though, man. Yeah, but maybe they'll fix that later too, because I mean, not being able to block at all or put your hands up at all is crazy. But looking at block regeneration impacts the rate at which your block health regenerates. That's kind of self-explanatory. Anybody who played games pretty much know that some of these are just easy to understand. It's not hard to understand. Looking at speed, agility determines how far in reach direction the fighter is able to weave. I'm gonna read that again for y'all. Determines how far in each direction the fighter is able to weave. How far? Read it one more time for y'all. Listen to what I'm saying. Determines how far. Weave backwards, left, right. That's how far. Impacts the amount of time a fighter's counter window, the time in which their opponent can land a counterpunch, is open. Impacts the amount of time a fighter's counter window is open. That's something that I'm sure didn't nobody know. I had to read that twice because I was like, damn, that's crazy. That's crazy. So if you have, I can only think that if you have a low agility, that your counter window is very big. And if you have a high agility, which it makes sense, because if you're really agile, the counter window is going to be very low in real life. If you're in front of somebody that can move very quickly and get their head out of the way quickly, you only got a split second to hit them. You know what I'm saying? So that makes sense, but I didn't know that was a part of the stat. And then the third thing determines how quickly a boxer is able to recover and throw another punch after missing a punch. So with saying that, you wouldn't want to go choose a guy to compete on this game that has the stat that slows their punches down in combination and also has a low agility. Those two put together is going to destroy your offense. That's what I'm getting from reading this. You know what I'm saying? That makes a lot of sense though, how quickly a boxer is able to recover and throw another punch after missing a punch. Okay? I might be wrong with that, but I think just from reading it, I think that like I said, you wouldn't want to choose a guy with low agility and that trait. Because if you missing punches, if you miss a jab, then that straight is slow as hell. Then that hook is slow as hell. You know what I'm saying? That third punch is going to be even slower. So you don't want to put yourself in those type of positions to be countered. Because if you have a low agility, you're going to be slow and you're going to have a bigger window to be countered. Y'all see what I'm saying? I hope I'm making sense to y'all. Like I said, it's my first time doing this, so I don't know if I'm explaining it to y'all correctly, if y'all can completely understand how this shit is working. Move speed. Controls the speed at which a fighter is able to move around the ring. That's self-explanatory. Punch speed impacts the speed at which a fighter's punches are thrown. Accuracy impacts a fighter's ability to adjust their punch to their opponent's movement, i.e. punch tracking. Now this right here is probably one of the most broken stats, probably, because a lot of times these guys with high accuracy, they'll throw a jab or a straight, somebody like Roy Jones, and you'll get out the way, but the punch will still track your head. And that's not realistic at all. If they miss, they miss, you know. It shouldn't track your head. That's something that they got to work on, but that's good to know in depth on how they explain accuracy right there. Let's move on to stamina. Stamina determines the initial max stamina value of the fighter. Okay, that's self-explanatory. Stamina regeneration, probably the same thing. Determines the amount of stamina a fighter can regenerate per second, though. Per second, not per round, per second, when stamina regeneration is active. Stamina recovery, however, is the amount of stamina a fighter can recover between rounds. So these two are completely different and do two completely different things. Y'all should know that. Conditioning and endurance. This is my bread and butter right here and what I want to know. Secondary stat that impacts a fighter's stamina recovery, block health recovery, and health recovery. So I can imagine a guy that has a high blocking stat or a high guarding stat, health regen stat, but has a 74 conditioning. That's probably going to take a very big, give him like a big negative. I don't know the word for it. I can't think of the word for it in the midst of me thinking on everything, but just it'll be a big negative towards those stats, having a low conditioning. And then endurance impacts the amount of stamina a fighter loses per punch thrown. I never knew that, dog. I never knew that, y'all. Now that's probably the most important thing I have read so far. Impacts the amount of stamina a fighter loses per punch thrown. There are so many people on this game, including me, that have been wondering, why does my stamina go down so fast? Why by round 5 do I have 50% stamina, 40% stamina, 35% stamina? This is possibly why. This plus a low stamina regeneration, plus a low stamina recovery, plus low block health, plus low guard. You know, all that can affect your fighter, bro. But this shit right here could honestly be the reason why you're having those issues with your stamina, man. You pair that with, like I said, low stamina regeneration and stamina recovery, you're gonna have a long day, a long 8 rounds, dog. Okay, so we know that now. Strength. Left hand power impacts the damage dealt by punches thrown using the fighter's left hand. Right hand power is the same thing with the right hand. Power punch modifier impacts the amount of additional damage a fighter's power modified punch will do compared to their non-power punch. I'm gonna read that again. Impacts the amount of additional damage a fighter's power modified punch will do compared to their non-power punch. Again, self-explanatory, but I feel like some people need to understand that a power punch modifier does additional damage. Jab modifier impacts how much damage a fighter's jab would do. Hook modifier, how much damage a hook would do. Uppercut, how much damage an uppercut would do. Straight, how much damage a straight would do. And then counter punch modifier, I cannot talk today, impacts how much additional damage is dealt by a punch if it's a counter punch. I wish with these two right here, power punch modifier and counter punch modifier, that we could see percentages, man, because I would like to see that in depth with each different fighter. So if a guy has a low counter punch stat like 83 or something, I would like to know like how much additional damage is dealt when he hits you with a counter. You know, how much percentage of, I would like to see that. Let's move on though. We almost done here, y'all. Vitality. Head health determines the amount of head health a fighter has at the start of the fight. Body health determines how much body health a fighter has at the start of a fight. Complete health, I'm gonna just say complete because there's a whole bunch of different health shit going on here. Determines the boxer's overall health level when they go into days. I'm gonna say that again. Your health stat determines the boxer's overall health level when they go into days. So when you get hit with a big right hook, let me rewind that. You hit somebody, you hit a Canelo with a big right hook and you stun him. Now on his end, his health is probably full. His health bar is probably full. But him being Canelo and you being somebody like Jaime Munguia, okay? I'm gonna just say that because they fought in real life, so that's what I can think of. You hit Jaime Munguia with a power right with Canelo, his head health or his health bar might be a fraction of that. Might be a third of that. Might be half of that. You see what I'm saying? Pay attention to that. Pay attention to that stat, man. That's very important. Health regeneration determines the amount all health types can regenerate health per second. So this controls all health stats. Okay? All health stats. Health recovery determines the amount of health a fighter can recover between rounds. You want a guy with high health recovery for sure. And I think that's it right there. Yeah, that's the end of it right there, man. So we just kind of went in depth right there, man, just to go over it again, man. I will post the blog post or the website link, whatever, in the description for y'all if y'all want to go back through and take a look at it. I do personally want to give Undisputed and everybody over there a big shout out for dropping this right here. This is very important. I don't think people know how important this is when you're trying to be competitive, bro. You have to know, just like people on Call of Duty know they guns, know what attachments to put on there and all that. This is the same shit. You got to know your fighter. You got to know the stats, what they mean, how they work, man. And that's all that I wanted to say today, all that I wanted to go through. All my women and men in boxing, I do appreciate y'all for watching this video and all the support. As always, y'all like the video, subscribe if you're new, and I'm gonna catch y'all next time, man. Y'all be smooth.